SC. It's one of the first things they said, before I knew what was happening, knew a little less than now. It's all very secret but pretty plain. You're in a criminal vortex. I wonder if you have read this example. The star and crescent is the common interpretation of the symbol on the Persian flags. TM. You disagree with that. I want some time to think. Don't tell me about it yet. What about the criminal vortex? What is that? SC. Yes, back to your original question, it must mean more than that, the containment system. I think it does, and I think at times I'm guessing a bit like the gap filler phosphate resins on the sun. You know, there is something about the sun now. It feels like whipping, a division or cutting through by the line gap filler. What used to be the 4 divisions of energetic retention stasis, it's one line cutting the sun in pieces but in a way we can't immediately relate to. TM. Maybe that is the meaning of Set and Osiris cut in pieces. SC. In July 2012 there was a major inversion reference. What I understand from Tesla's description, but also from my own experience, is that the sun had 4 centrifugal centers, sort of like wind organs, repellent features of division but not truly defined as divisible. If you look at the pyramid it's something similar, but it wasn't a static thing like you see when you look at Giza. There was sort of like combustion chambers, the winds turning over and working back through the circuit. In that sense the centers were these 2 lines, more or less 4 corners or sections. Before the repair seminar on the solar network. The solar network. This part I'm less certain than some of the other things, but what I understand is this event caused, and this will sound absurd, but a kind of circuit break that caused a static resurfacing abrasion of everything everywhere, regarding the contaminant zone or containment area. This usually is a reset, but this time I think it was about observation. Just knowing, again like Charlie, the answers by the continuing expression of experience. Our assumptions are that they're experiencing similar things because they express similar desires through similar motives of language as attachment. It all becomes much easier to assume the best for everybody, that works, and then it doesn't. That's all it is. Anyway, there was a static resurfacing of the sun, a rewinding of time to the collapse. My vision is fogged. The difference now is the semi-formal, neutron-solid form of sentient emission is not traveling to the sun and adding weight to the former resin chamber or magnetic holding harness. The energetic charge stasis around the sun is similar to how an induction coil works in a static tensive frame, before the discharge or stasis break. There is now a difference to the charge stasis, and they called it Lamb's breath. Before, neutron solids were collecting as phosphates in the condensational lux surrounding the charge stasis. With the 2012 solar inversion they filtered in and down, then into the crevices of what are considered wind or drafting lines. You may have wondered about the right eye left eye thing, the fish symbol, Eye of Hathor, and the rest of it. From what I understand, the left eye is centered to the core, the turning radius right to left, the right eye spins left to right but is keyed to the draft relation of the sun as it appears to move around us as the earth turns. It's sort of specifics and generals, but there are other applications, 3D etc. The drafting lines or paths from the Earth's rotation around the Sun are how the solids begin to make it to the Sun, then Venus' coil, then Mercury's coil. It's the shell scope, and the process is quantitative from there, but only in a way that is universally applicable and repetitive. As a break from the fluid moment, I'll tell you a story of how something that was a mere curiosity became a breakthrough. Something I read in the Quran. There were a few things, but this particular scene or circumstance had me thinking on several levels. It described a scene where there was a huge line of people, and if you received the book in your left hand you would go to heaven, if it was placed in your right hand you won't. That's how I figured out the electron capture on the harness. Believe it or not, it's related to the spinning, but not so simple. I tested the brazen detail, and I'm sure I won't write it here. Be careful, Satan, Shani. A. The tendency of the common religious woe-man to force the eternal decision of the destiny on God, i.e., someone else, a line perhaps miles wide and long, expecting to be received, expecting judgment, will I would, will I won't, seems infantile. Like you said, there is much I don't understand, cannot presume to speak for the rest of us. Everybody move to the back of the bus. The semi-formal neutron solid is a discharge notation, and the process is complicated, but the sensations aren't unique. The semi-formal neutron solid travels by touching the coils in front of them regarding the orientation they're a part of. When they get to the sun, the phosphate charge would build in massive levels around the Lux notation of the magnetic resin, swelling, but soon a weight built, massive in relation to the size of the sun, and it fell into the sun like icing from a wedding cake, molten lava through a weak resin plasma discharge. That open hole, though, caused a massive recalibration of the energetics, and it broke a circuit breaker. From what I understand, some of us have not been able to even surface, because this time stop reset is sort of what they're counting on, how they have survived so long through interval cycles of love and appetite. What I am certain of, I believe, is this is the second long or eternal cycled time is artificial. It couldn't have happened without coordinate intervention, I mean. They said that civilization or sentient articulation still experiencing the opportunity of progress is similar to God stopping time for Joshua. It's not for me, it's for something bigger than this, something to do with a wedding. I'm not sure of the details. My relationship with someone, I sense it, and it is different, isn't a part of whatever this world, this life, this time stop or gap momentum is all about. I say this because I am not the point of anything. After the resurfacing, the neutron solid still floats down the drafting cycles to the bottom of our solar ocean, the sun, but now instead of collecting as a phosphate resin, they called it, they filter through the sun and to the other side of it. If you saw the Bond cover looking through a twisting barrel at James Bond with a gun, where that white part is the heat radius, and apparently now, and I guess not before, it actually burns off the dark energetic surfacing, and these semi-formal neutron solids, that were traveling through the coil framing like around a pyramid, are now filtering straight through the sun in a winding, narrowing trajectory. The flow of the neutron solids a chemical stimulant, the coils I will explain better later, but it forms a bridge over time through the sun. Imagine the notations forming in the seams or drafting lines of the Earth's rotation around the sun. Each year a new platform is achieved, but it's circular in a way, or kinda, relates to the shell horizons or spacing found in some of Da Vinci's work. The neutrons in the drafting lines, because they're attached to a coil, tag each other kinetically to move down the chain, but the sensation is with the winds to the face. The momentum is just a conditioning or contextual circumstance for the path of least resistance. The distance is accomplished quickly, reaching the sun in weeks or days even. Think of a Twix bar for the formal dynamics and informal appearance of the neutron solids, as they draft momentum to the center of our solar system. The outer layer of chocolate is the circumference of a re-expanding energetic collapse surging around the caramel and cookie, and the appearance of symmetry is constant. The semi-lux notation of the neutron is the caramel, and the cookie would be the coil. Semi-lux, semi-formal, semi-neutral, but the most important or interesting to me part is there is at some point a semi-flammable attribute. TM, heading into the vent. SC, yes, but it's not the sun, it's on the other side of it. Hold your hand out like the hang loose symbol, right hand for the example, thumb to right eye, pinky pointing left. Now move your hand right to left, and that is the momentum of travel to the sun. Reverse the momentum, and that is the impact of the wind coming from the sun now, the heat line radius, and it burns through the walls and filters these neutrinos. It looks like bitter thin licorice candies, not sure if you ever had one, but the heat radius reorients or reforms the momentum and unwinds those little semi-neutron features by themselves, I imagine still attached to coils, not sure. On the other side of the sun, and this is as far as my knowledge takes me on the subject, there is a massive planet-like dark mass feature that is churning around the edges, and it just magnetizes these densities. Once the neutron solid is magnetized, it just expands and churns in through and around the circumference, becomes part of the static notation of the reverse magnetic polarization. If you were to imagine maybe an iron ball as a magnet with a numbering chart of potential notational expressions in and around as part of the system, and they will just filter through these notational numbering systems. For them there's an intuitional correctness to it. You could think of a Tootsie Roll, and it appears like there is an energetic surfacing streaming thin around the edges at all places equal, and always in a constant gallop of collapsing equilibrium. Now think of how saltwater taffy is made, and that is much of what the process or mechanics are once they reach the attribute of a collected neutron. Because the sun didn't split, we are stuck going down, and soon the sun will start touching the walls because of the narrowing or noose of the quasar we're in. Eventually the sun ignites the repolarization object, and we will use the blast to propel ourselves out of the depths or waters, so to speak. It will only be the Earth, I think, and one other planet, and will be like being shot out of a cannon. Even though there is a reason I don't think this method is necessary, it's for fun and it will be sort of like riding a wave. The idea of being rescued is anathema to our experience, and I think the notion is similar to the idea or question, will this be delivery or carryout? We're leaving, and we're taking the Earth with us. The neutrino filter is different, I think that is the amplification reference. Here's how I see it, I figured it out using the 1 to 9 911, sorry that's confusing for now but won't be for long or always, reference on the walls of the pyramid. The larger magnetic density is a giant orb. I feel like it's smaller than the total plane radius of the sun, planet-like, but it is a reverse density, an inside-out equation that allows the streaming to absorb anything and never change shape or weight. I could see the shapes and feel the momentums when the larger one reaches a state of rotationally unwound tension, it twirls back in a surge. When this happens, the smaller orb that is in our galaxy or universe system starts to slacken and drift. The larger reverse polar notation behind the sun then winds in 3 times stop, wind in 3 times, 3 times stop. This is the condensational ripple scientists have been able to measure. The backspin is a total of 9 rotations, it's sort of like letting out line but it's forming ballast, then it pulls in the amplifier 3 times, 3 turns each. When this happens, the smaller object as a 1/3 measure is pulled in and rotates left around right as it does. When the larger orb on the other side of the sun reels back to tension, the smaller reference in our galaxy or universe slackens and its spin just starts to drift in the other direction. So here is what is happening. I've thought of a million ways this could be done. When the larger object reels back, it's spinning right around left. When it is pulling in the other object, it's left around right. The amplification reference or smaller object in our galaxy is being pulled in countercurrent. Imagine 2 triangles, one on top of the other, points out, one up and one down, meeting at the base or horizon. Each triangle